Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Hey X, if you're up working the grave shift, or have stories from working graveyard, post in this thread. My story: working graveyard as desk clerk security at creepy old hotel, like 2 AM or something, watching crappy monitors, each screen split into 16 views, grainy. Notice something interesting. One of the third floor monitors points down a corridor towards a window. Looks like some kind of creepy faces peering in. Sent shivers down my spine. Wait. Third floor. Face. Nope.jpg. Stare at that face. It remains the same for the following 6 hours of my shift. Convince myself by degrees that it's just some kind of weird illusion of the light. Something else that looks like a face, etc. Become familiar and comfortable with the face. Come back on shift the following night. Complete logs. Turn around to look at third floor monitor and say hello to my old friend the face. Face is gone. OMG WTF lol BBQ. JPG was something staring in that third floor window for 8 hours last night. What the hell? Anybody else got any good ones?
Used to work in a public library, and one time, I had to close, but I ended up staying even later to help one of my bosses with some stuff brownie points get. I was walking down a hallway on the ground floor and, shit you not, the lights started turning off as I passed them, one by goddamn one. I freaked and ran for it like a bitch. I made sure to stay by my boss for a bit after that, just cause being near people makes supernatural fear go away for me, but I didn't say anything. Eventually, I convinced myself it was probably just a coincidence with the place closing, and I felt better. Later that night, I had to get something from an office on the top floor. I went up there, and the office is totally goddamn trashed, even though all the other offices in the building are just fine. I would have just brushed it off, but the document I needed was sitting on top of the pile, facing so someone walking in could read it. I grabbed it and brought it to my boss, saying nothing, again. But, before I handed him the paper, he handed me a key and apologized for not giving me the key sooner, because you need that key to get into that office. At this point, I want to say something, but I don't want to say, ghosts, so I put on my clever cap, and go, is that the only key? Because I have the paper right here, and the door was open when I got there. I tell him about how the office was a wreck, and he concludes, burglar, and we get out and call the cops. They didn't find anything. I'm sure there's a million rational explanations, but it still creeped me out. I actually have a more directly spooky experience in that place, but it wasn't a graveyard shift thing. I could post it if you want. Okay. Librarian continuing, and this one's better, I promise. So, in the break room in this same library, one wall was completely covered with blinds that are always closed. One day, me and all the other teens working there are in this room, because we all took our breaks at the same time, and I get the urge to see some sunlight, so I open the blinds. The windows behind it were pitch black. As if they were painted. It's 3 PM in goddamn June, the sun is shining, and the break room shares a wall with the kids' book room, which has windows that see outside no problem. I point this out to everybody and we all realize that no one has ever opened those blinds, despite that more than one person in the room had been there for 3+ years. We all get just a little creeped out. Just a little. We work in this building, we're in a big group of people, we've been in this room like a million times before. A girl, we can call her Becky, suggests that maybe the windows are just painted or something for some reason, and if we open them, we'll see the beautiful day outside. So, this other coworker of mine, let's call him Chris, he was the big man in the room, and says, yeah, I'll open it. And he walks right up and does so. And we did not see a beautiful day. We saw an old room, that none of us were aware of. It was so dusty, I doubt it saw a human touch in 40 years. Like, the whole room was fucking gray, it was so dusty. And the room was, get this, filled with toys. There was a big, ladybug-shaped sandbox. There was a bicycle. There was a pile of assorted train toys. There was a small stack of thin books, like kids' books, that gave me one of those nasty, creepy feelings just looking at it. I was reminded of every creepy child I had ever seen in every movie. And I think everyone else was too, because we all looked at each other, either scared and confused or just scared. And Becky, she looks in, and looks around in there and says, "Hey, there's no door in this room." I remember her saying that distinctly. It's like a damn tape recording in my head, because everything so far was just weird, but that sentence is where it got creepy. The break room was separated from this creepy room by a damn wall, with windows in it. Why on earth would anybody wall off a bunch of kids' toys, and install windows that looked into the walled-off room? It occurs to me at about this time, that the light from the break room makes it really easy to see into the toy room. Like it's not dark in there at all, it is perfectly lit. So why were the goddamned windows pitch black? Should the light have gone through them, and I should have been able to see the other room when I moved the blinds? So, I put my hand on one side of an open window, and my head on the other side, and sure enough, I can see through it plain as day. I close the window, and it's pitch fucking black again. I pointed this out to everyone else, and they were completely baffled. About that time, we realized our break was over a few minutes ago, and we went back to the library proper. When we got there, our boss, not the same boss above, who was a bit of a hardass, got mad and asked we were all late. Another coworker, Rob, told her we found the weird room behind the windows in the break room. Her response was, "Oh, that," and she dropped it. This was a woman who would lecture a room full of people about the littlest goddamn thing, like if somebody left without writing on their sign-out sheet, "Never mind, our shifts are all predetermined," and she has the master document with all our shifts on it on her desk at all times. That whole building was at DEFCON 1. That woman didn't wanna talk about that room. So, sometime later, we're all in the break room again, and someone who wasn't there last time wants to see it. And, I'm still creeped out, but it's one of those, creeped outs, where you want to expose someone else to it, to make sure that fear is the proper response, and you're not just crazy, so I say sure, and open the blinds, and open an impossibly dark window. And this guy looks around, and he's just having a normal, "we found a weird thing" reaction. You know, whoa, why is this here? This is cool. Stuff like that. A minute or two later Chris opens up another one, and he looks into for a few minutes, and then he turns to me and goes, "Hey, this room, it was dusty as hell last time, right?" I say, "Yeah," because it was, and I see what he's getting at, so I open a window, and look through myself. And this room is fucking clean. Like, spick and fucking span. Perfectly clean. Mrs. Brady and Alice had been through this fucking room. And I say so. And all the people who were there last time open windows and look through, and have, again, minor freakouts. And Chris shuts his windows and goes, "I think I'm gonna end my break early today." And everyone in the room decides that's a good idea, and we shuts our windows, shut the blinds, and leave, all in a silence that no one wants to break. On the way back, we pass a maintenance guy, and Becky asks him, "Hey, what's with that walled-off room in the break room?" And he just stares at us, with this expression on his face that either shock or fear, but either way, it was strong. And, I guess Becky thought he was confused, because she says, "The one with all the old toys," and he cuts her off and says, Don't go in there, kids." And walks off. I didn't work the next day, but I did the Monday after. And Chris comes up to me that Monday and says, "We're not allowed to take all breaks at the same time anymore." And a few days have passed, and I've convinced myself that the toy room was just some kind of crazy set of coincidences, and it doesn't matter, so I'm just responding to the news of a boss taking away an employee privilege. I probably said something like, "Man, that's lame." I don't even remember what I said, because it's that unimportant. But that same day, me and Chris, and two other people are slacking off in one of the aisles, and we've been talking about this change all day, so I say, "Hey, did you guys all start taking your breaks at the same time in the first place?" And Chris says, "Because," and here he gets visibly afraid, "because we always felt creeped out in the break room alone. Like we were being watched. And because I have to take a dump."
Worst ending ever.
Fuck is wrong with you people? People have to shit sometimes. Look, I didn't make any of that up. All that shit happened to me, for real. I don't have proof, but I would offer that derailing a graveyard shift thread with a nun graveyard shift story would be a shitty thing to do if it didn't connect to the actual graveyard shift story I posted. I could have made my own thread, and I didn't, because the events are related, because they really goddamned happened. And the thing about real life is, very rarely if ever does somebody really see a ghost. No one ever sprouts wings and flies away to rule to moon people. In real life, things just kind of peter out. subjects get dropped, and you never learn how certain things happened, or why they did. The epilogue to that story is that that break room saw little to no use while I was at that job after that happened. When we took our breaks after that, we just lounged around this big couch in the reading area, and it was way more comfortable than the folding chairs in the break room anyway. Everyone was scared by that room, but as far as I know, none of the teens at that library ever found out that some kids got stabbed there or some shit. We were frightened, so we left it alone, like a bear or something. You see scary thing, you get the fuck away from scary thing. That is one of the most normal human reactions in the world. Anyway, I left out two things. One, when the room was cleaned, it was really just dusted. The dust was gone and everything was shiny and new, but the toys in that book pile were left in their haphazard positions. That's why it frightened us so bad. Human beings organize shit when they clean, especially when what you're cleaning is a public building that you work at, which is the only way I could see that room being cleaned having a rational explanation. 2. The narrative I put together in my head for the "you can't all take break parties anymore" rule was that the maintenance guy told our boss that we were all poking around in there, and she couldn't legally deny us having breaks, and just boarding up the break room or something would be too over the top, so she assumed we only had the courage to fuck around in there if there was a big group of us. We sometimes all took our couch breaks at the same time anyway, and no one gave us crap over it, so I'm pretty sure the rule was just an attempt to keep us out of that room. And if anybody has an explanation for why someone would wall off a bunch of toys, and put windows into the doorless, walled-off room, please enlighten me, because I left that job 3 years ago, and I still can't figure it the fuck out.
That kind of thing's actually surprisingly common in 20th century buildings. Especially ones that have had dodgy building work done or are not up to code. It's really common, actually, in mid-century high schools. It was probably a dodgy storage room that got sealed up by mistake or as part of some weird compromise while renovations were being done.
Working grave shift at hospital. Be registered nurse in psych ward. Walking down long semi-dark hall, you turn most hall lights off at night for the patients, see nurses aide leaning against the wall doing paperwork. Both notice ball of light come out of room at end of long hall. Look at each other to confirm it's real. Both are frozen and can't talk as it floats low near the ground. It gets close. I'm standing in the middle of the hall and it moves straight through my legs. I whip around to see it turning the corner into a different hall. I run to see if it's still there. It's gone. We both freak out all shift and every time we work together have an eerie vibe. Ever since then I've believed something else is in our world that we can't explain. Another hospital story from same place. Sitting in nurse's station doing paperwork. Pretty standard night. Getting super tired, shift about 2 hours from being over, work 16-hour shifts, call light turns on. Look over at console to see that it's the guest shower room. At 2 a.m., I leave the nurse's station to check it out. Light above door is flashing. I knock on the door and open slowly, revealing a large pitch black room. As I do, I hear rustling and a curtain being pulled in the back. I call out to see if a crazy person has decided to sleep in the shower over the night. It's happened before. I turn on light and walk towards the back shower. I pull the curtain revealing nothing. I turn the call light off. Light turns off and door slams behind me. I stand in complete darkness for 15 seconds listening. I hear the faint sound of moaning. Standard nope out of there and take my 15-minute break. I have no clue how any of that happened. Suck is life at night, in the hospital, in the psych ward where people die on a weekly basis.
Work at Dairy Queen till 1 a.m. most nights cleaning up and shit. Small one because it connects to a gas station. Get truckers and lot lizards all the time, so pretty used to having to turn away people after close. See clearly homeless guy walking around begging for change. Make sure door is locked so I don't have to tell the fucker go away. Disappears and think nothing of it. Everyone walking to cars because girls will get attacked if we don't, at least that's what they think. Watch trucker working girl exit semi and start her crooked walk to her car. A wild hobo appears. Watch as he stabs her for what seems like 5 minutes while she screams the most blood-curdling noise I've ever heard. Takes purse. Sees us and freezes. Bolts to road and runs off. Call cops while we do our best to help her. She's leaking everywhere. Ambulance gets there pretty quick because of area. Pretty much standard police stuff after that. Never found out if she lived, and I don't really care because I'm still trying to block out that night.
Okay, X, this is going to be my first real post on here. I work night shifts as a security guard for a hospital near where I live. I can see the building right now as I write this from my window. Contrary to what most people would think, the areas our staff has ever had strange occurrences happen to them aren't the areas you would first think of when you think haunted hospital. The ER, morgue and areas like that are perfectly fine at 3 a.m. There are countless stories of guards seeing things all over the compound, shadow people outside doors, small children running through the hall in the dark, strange dogs roaming the parking lot and standing on two legs. But those are all secondhand stories. I'm sure some of them are just from certain people who don't want to really do their job and just stay in the office watching monitors all night. But I'll tell you my story, which is what has happened to me so far. The first one wasn't very frightening of an experience, but it certainly made an impression on me. I was walking through the administration area of the hospital, which is a completely different building than the hospital itself. You walk through a long hallway completely windowed on both sides that connects the buildings. This building is usually vacated by 6 p.m. save for a few stragglers that are catching up on work and whatnot, so of course it's safe to assume there's nobody at all in the building after 10 or so. I was inside doing hourly door checks at 3 a.m. I have my normal routine, and everything is fine until I reach a separate hallway that locks on both sides. I checked the doors and I'm halfway down when out of nowhere a whistle rang into my right ear. It was clearly a human-sounding whistle, and I even felt the air on my neck and ear, so I spun around quickly thinking a fellow guard was behind me, but of course nothing was there. It was a long drawn-out whistle. I got out of there quickly, and to this day I keep expecting it to happen every time I check that area. We have security cameras everywhere, but the only one seen entering the building all night was me. A coworker and I tried doing an EVP session later that week after I told her what happened in that building, but nothing was caught. Later, an older guard actually told us that someone in the mental clinic downstairs from where I was hung themselves during an interview with a doctor after the doctor left the office. A pediatric clinic has had sounds coming from it that to me sounded like a music box, but I can never find the source. I assumed it was a phone, but every night. I like this job, but sometimes the creepiness gets to me. I liken my job to that movie, Nightwatch, about a guy that works at a city morgue. Sometimes I'm not sure if it's my mind playing tricks on me or if I'm actually seeing some of these things. If you ever want to see weird shit, just get a nighttime security job. I've been doing this for 10 years now and I've witnessed a lot. Let's see what else. I used to work for an electronics factory about 5 years ago. It was a small place. I had a small security shack outside to stay in. It was in a rural area surrounded by fields for livestock and corn. I would sit in the shack all night unless I had to turn off ovens in the factory that were baking electronic stuff. One night I'm sitting there looking at the empty parking lot when I thought I saw a plastic bag in the distance gliding along the pavement. I watched as it slowly moved along in a straight line. I noticed as it got a little closer it wasn't a plastic bag but the head and upper torso of a faint human figure. I turned off the light in the shack and watched as it kept moving straight across the parking lot and reached the single road that led back to the city and disappeared. It reminded me of how it looks when someone walks through water and the majority of their body is submerged. This thing was simply submerged in the ground and pavement. I spent the rest of the night in my car in case I needed to leave quickly.
Motherfucker, what color? Transparency? etc.
It was white, like a white plastic bag you see in grocery stores. Almost opaque, not too transparent. I remember vividly how the shoulders moved back and forth. That's how I knew it was walking. If it turned and looked at me, I probably would have noped the hell out of there, but it never noticed me. Washington State Trooper here, posted a few from last time. Since then, bumped up to Sergeant Supervisor. Patrolling near Bickerton. Half hour into shift, get a code 280, suspicious person, Prowler, on a private property. Respond to that call, since nothing else was happening. Roll up. Swing spotlight into area the Prowler was supposed to be on the property. Nothing. Roll up to the house and turn off the truck, just waiting to see if anything was around. Nothing so far. Decide to wait around for 15 more minutes, then report nothing around happening. Watching the barn horse area. Notice an odd shadow towards the barn door. Swing my spotlight towards it and turn it on. Shadow was nothing, but the barn door is open. Report to dispatch at code 282. Door open, possible burglary, and the need for another officer to be dispatched. Officer is 20 minutes away. Continue. Flashlight out. Firearm retaining snap is unlatched. Hand on firearm. Look around the barn door, shining my light inside. Step in. Hello. State troopers. Hear a rustling and the other barn door open and slam shut. Book it through the barn, through the door, and into the field. Shadow heading towards the woods at a quick pace. I'm struggling to keep up. One hat on my firearm, the other on my radio. 232 to dispatch. Foot pursuit heading north off property. 510. Shadow had reached the trees like a Kenyan after an ice cream truck. Unholster firearm and swing flashlight up. No footprints, no broken branches, nothing. Step into the dense tree line and walk a few feet. Light shines across a pair of eyes in the distance watching me. Had an overwhelming uneasiness wash over me. Really unusual, as I've hunted in dense woods at night and never had the feeling that was happening now. Mild nope alarm going off. A couple more steps and I'll turn around and leave, I tell myself under my breath. With each step, flashlight on the pair of eyes and the safety of my firearm off, I advance. Finally, I'm about 25 feet from the pair of eyes. The nope alarm is going off at an 11 by this point. Stop moving forward. Washington State Trooper, don't move, or you'll be fired upon. I stammered, hear the crunch of vegetation and a branch as the pair of eyes moves forward. I scream at the top of my lungs, don't fucking move, or you'll be shot. One more step is taken. Knee-jerk response, I fire off one round. The eyes disappear with the crack of the bullet exiting the barrel. Keep silent and hold my breath to listen to my surroundings. Nothing but the sound of vegetation being stepped on as whatever it is runs away. Step backwards, keeping my eyes on the darkness beyond my flashlight. Finally make it out of the woods. 15 minutes walking backwards slowly, turn around and make a mad dash toward the house. Farmer is out on the porch, shotgun in hand, and backup is rolling down the dirt road toward me. Explain the situation. Farmer had the same thing happen to him, that's why he called. Finally write up a report of a wild animal. Shots were fired, animal never found. It's been a while since that, but never again has something watching me, frightened me so bad.
Okay, so I'll post on X. I used to be a 911 dispatcher in a small rural county in northern West Virginia. It involved sitting in a room locked by a magnet which is in a little building connected to the county courthouse. By law, I wasn't allowed to leave without being charged with abandonment of my post or whatever. I sat in a chair, answered 911 calls, sheriff's depth calls, talked on a radio, worked a computer, etc., etc. The surveillance cameras for the entire courthouse as well as cameras that looked outside in the parking lot, Main Street, etc. were in the office. Midnights were from 12 a.m. to 8 a.m., and at that time on a weekday in a small town the downtown area is empty except for me sitting in my little room. There was nobody there really except maybe some cleaning staff who stayed late, but all were gone by around 1 a.m. So, I'm sitting there one slow night, messing around on my laptop, and I get bored and decide to play with the cameras, which were the 360-degree black ball cameras you normally see. There is an old maintenance steam tunnel that runs under the building, but it isn't used anymore, but due to some break-ins from the outside, had a camera in it. It was beginning of shit. There was a janitor in the courthouse, so I followed him with the camera and shit, messing around. The cameras were night vision, so everything had a green tint, but in the steam tunnel I saw the camera shake, like it had been hit with wind, or something. And I saw the door to the front of the courthouse on my camera bounce, like a gust of wind had just blown against it. I thought this was weird but blew it off and went back to looking for the janitor working in the courthouse, but he was gone. The lights were still on in the office he was working in, but he was gone. It was at this time that the elevator that leads up to the second floor, where I worked, kicked on. These aren't ordinary elevators, you need a key code to get into the elevator, and then you need a key. To get to the floor you want to go to, there are no buttons. So, I thought it was the janitor coming up to see me about something. As it reached my floor from the basement floor, where you get on, the doors opened, and it was empty. This scared me. That elevator doesn't move on its own, it never has, and it's impossible for anyone to move it, because all the main controls for it were in my office, and I hadn't hit any of the buttons for it. I hear a knock on the door of the office, and I pop the lock, and open it. The janitor is standing there, white as a ghost, and he walks into the dispatch room, a crime, and closes the door behind him. He knows he isn't supposed to do this, but he really didn't look like he gave a fuck. I asked him basically, what the fuck are you doing, man? And he looks at me and asks me, did you see that? I of course ask what? He replies, the doors down there in the courthouse, they moved, and I felt something go past me, like someone running really fast, headed toward the elevator. When I heard the elevator move, I knew something was up, so I booked it. Paraphrasing, he was very upset. And I told him about the elevator moving up to my floor by itself, and he about died on the spot. He resigned the next day after working there for 20-some years. When I told my boss about this, he said, yeah, this used to be the county jail, you know. Some guy himself in that storage room right beside your office when it was a cell. I thought, holy fucking shit, I have to sit in this haunted courthouse to do my job, and I hated it. I spent the rest of my time there looking over my shoulder and trying to never look at the cameras unless I had to. Lots of scary stories came from there, including a lot of ghost calls, which are calls that originate and end immediately, but in a 911 center, the phone never stops ringing until you pick it up. If you call 911 and hang up, the phones on their end will just ring and ring and ring until they answer.
I grew up in a town founded on coal mining, so there are places where nothing is built to avoid unstable old coal mines. Sinkholes sometimes form. Anyway, be about 16, live in neighborhood which backs up old coal mines. Be bored as shit with friend, let's call him Jake, and decide to head into the woods near coal mines. Kid was supposed to have self in the woods because he was depressed or father disowned him. Call bullshit, move forward. Teenagers have made path into woods for paintball, drinking, typical teenage bullshit. Follow path till we reach deserted paintball course, old pieces of plywood used for cover. Looking around for old paintballs to throw at each other when I find piece of white cloth in path we were just on. Didn't remember seeing it before, covered in what looks like blood. Brush it off as just paint from paintballs, throw cloth into woods. Starting to run out of daylight, but fuck it, keep moving along path for like 15 minutes. Reach place where path narrows, on either side of path are 2 ponds, except water in ponds is black as oil. Still enough daylight to see this. Creature from the Black Lagoon ponds are lifeless, no turtles or anything, definitely not a drainage pond either because we're way out in the woods. Getting uneasy, but move forward with Jake. Find another, bigger piece of white cloth with same red color as before in middle of path. Way beyond where anyone plays paintball, no beer cans or anything either. Nope levels increasing. Jake calls me a pussy, move down path another 200-300 feet. Pushes me off trail pretending to be ghost or something. Really getting dark now. I lose balance and trip. Jake runs away laughing like an asshole and runs back down the path towards the beginning of it. Rage mode engaged, chase after Jake as fast as I can. Reach Black Lagoons and hear thunking noises, like someone throwing rocks in them. Think Jake is still fucking with me. Run after that bitch. Running after Jake, hear him laughing and want to punch him repeatedly. Reach old paintball course, hear laughing and rustling behind pieces of wooden cover. Run to cover, no Jake. WTF.jpg. Look down and see third piece of white cloth with red on it next to bottom end of an old noose. Completely bewildered, looking around for Jake still. Hear echo of laughing coming back from direction of lagoons. Nope. Engage Kenya and sprint down the rest of the path to get the fuck out of there. Jake standing in middle of cul-de-sac where path starts, asks me what took me so long. Ask him if he was fucking around the old paintball course. He tells me he's been walking around the cul-de-sac for 10 minutes waiting. Look back down path into darkness and see a pair of red eyes glaring at us. Look over at Jake, he's white as sheet. Look back at path, eyes on. Tell him what happened in the woods. We never go back. I recently did some research on the area, and the woods behind my old neighborhood go back for miles before you hit anything else, but I can't find anything about the ponds or anything. Not really a grave shift, but still creepy as fuck.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.